of elephant versus unicorn.
Yeah. A unicorn startup is purposefully going for $1 billion plus valuation as fast as possible, raising millions and tens of millions of dollars along the way.
And sometimes hundreds.
And hundreds of millions. From VCs that have raised $500 million, $1 billion, or multi-billion-dollar funds. And it's not just happening in Silicon Valley, it's happening here in Utah and other markets. What is an elephant?
So I don't know, I'll take a stab at what an elephant is first versus a unicorn, which is there is a different way to grow and there is a different way to approach VC. And I'm Tyler Richards, one of the GPs at Startup Ignition Ventures, co-founder of Startup Ignition and Startup Ignition Bootcamp. John is also managing partner of the Startup Ignition Ventures Fund. He is the founder of the content and curriculum, which originated back almost 15, 20 years ago in the university atmosphere, where he spent 12 years as a professor teaching entrepreneurship. So we are just your all-around full journey, full ecosystem, early stage startup guys. But I want to set the table today and kind of open the framework for what we want to discuss, because over the last handful of years, the environment that we're operating in today's post-COVID era, where we experienced the highs of the highs, and now we've entered into these kind of lower, less.
And I don't even think it's post-COVID. I think it's really, we had a ZIRP period, ZIRP, which is zero interest rate period, that went on for a decade. The 2010s, all of you young bucks lived through the 2010s where you had cheap money. Money was easy, flowing like water, and that's one environment to do a startup and venture in. But then, boom, 2022 hits where we do 11 interest rate increases by the Fed, the Federal Reserve of the United States, and it changes the whole ball game. And that coincided a little with COVID, but really, I think it's more the Fed's interest rate is what gave us a black and white era.
Yeah, and so, but I was just saying, I think that there's a big difference between post 2021 and pre 2021, right? That's very obvious. It's glaring to every entrepreneur that's practicing and building and trying to grow right now, right? There's a stark difference between those two eras. And post the 2021 era, it took a little bit of time, I think, for into 2022, 2023, that there was a reality that kind of set in where this growth at all costs, unicorn type mentality is not necessarily the best strategy.
But even that whole feeling of easy money 2021, the crazy valuations, all the investment activity, that's still not fully purged out. One thing that I just read was Dave McClure just put out an incredible post. He's one of the most important angel and venture investors in the world, founder of 500 startups and all that. He put out an incredible recent article questioning why are some companies clinging to these high valuations from 2021 when they haven't taken their write-downs and adjusted their valuations. That's all kind of part of the same mix of us saying, what is it we're really after and what are the valuations?
I had a conversation with one of the most recent companies that was in the latest batch of YC, was kind of hitting the road and doing a lot of fundraising work, and had reached out to our venture fund and Startup Ignition Ventures. And they were raising $2 million on a number of evaluation for a pre-revenue and, kind of post-product company. And I'm just like, is that the going rate nowadays? Is that the going rate of post-YC? That's what they're trying to ship and sell themselves out, and that's the terms and the deals that they're trying to do? We didn't get super deep into conversation. Again, this was only via email, so it wasn't like a Zoom call.
I think that's what Dave McClure is talking about.
What I'm trying to set the table for this concept between being a unicorn and growth at all costs and growing and raising and fundraising and getting to these astronomical valuations.
And everything in your lifestyle that comes with that.
And everything that comes along with that same exact package. In 2021, all the way through 2023, and now in 2025, I feel like the reality has set in a bit to where, and at least something that we've been believing and holding on to for the last 10 years, which is there is a different way to grow, and there is a different way to approach VC. And
you want me to kind of summarize?
And so that's what I want to talk about today, but you go ahead and tell everybody what I'm talking about.
Okay, so here's the bottom line. I've always said it this way. There's kind of a fork in the road that an entrepreneur faces. If you're doing a scalable venture, most scalable ventures need external financing. Very few founders have the ability to bootstrap or have their own capital to take a scalable venture that takes a while to get customers to get to the point where it's cash flowing and you don't need investment. So almost every scalable venture, software, consumer product, electronic product, whatever it is, needs external capital to get through the cash flow cycle or to get through the J curve of entrepreneurship. So how are you going to get that capital? How are you going to pursue it? And what does that entail for and mean to you as founders? Do I just go raise a boatload of money and go for the gusto and sell a vision that's huge and high and that we're going to get to $1 billion plus valuation and all the investors that come along for the ride are going to make a ton of money because of that growth? That's unicorn. So that's, you can pursue going after being a unicorn. But what I've made most of my money in my career on, and what I've been a participant on in terms of being an investor and investing in other entrepreneurships, is much more in what was now being called elephants. And that's what we want to talk about today, is the elephant pursuit versus unicorn pursuit. A unicorn startup is purposefully going for $1 billion plus valuation as fast as possible, raising millions and tens of millions of dollars along the way.
And sometimes hundreds.
And hundreds of millions from VCs that have raised $500 million, $1 billion, or multi-billion dollar funds. And it's not just happening in Silicon Valley, it's happening here in Utah and other markets.
But that terminology is what's relatively new since 2021 is when it kind of first came on the scene of elephant versus unicorn.
Yeah. So
but that's something that we've believed in from a long time. It just hasn't been as acutely defined.
So what is an elephant? Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll take a stab at what an elephant is first versus a unicorn, which is highly focused around the durability and the profitability, the founder fit and the capital efficiency of a startup, right? It's like, are you burning to grow, or are you actually capital efficient and trying to reach profitability to self-sustain and also get to a great outcome?
So are you trying to force growth by spending money,
right,
or are you having organic growth because you have a great product?
Right. Yeah. And again, we've thought this way for a long time. Again, it hasn't been defined specifically as an elephant, but for the last 10, 15 years, we have always encouraged entrepreneurs that come across, and even the way that I've operated my own companies, the company that I sold for tens of millions of dollars was literally bootstrapped.
You
had no
raised
capital.
Zero external capital.
Like literally, if we didn't make money, we weren't in business. Yeah. So it was like,
you had to eat what you kill.
Yeah. And so that mentality is what we try to ingrain in the brains of all the entrepreneurs that would come across us as mentors and advisors and helpers. And we say, look, don't go raise as much capital as possible. Get your employee count up, get your burn up as high as possible to get growth at all costs. In fact, raise as little as possible so that you have as minimal dilution as possible and achieve profitability as quickly as you can on that money, but also to self-sustain, to then slowly build really good business and revenue so that at the end of the day, yes, you're still achieving 5 million in ARR, 10 million in ARR, 15 million in ARR. Maybe it's a 5, 10, 15-year game, but look, you're preserving 90% of the cap table for you and your co-founders, 10% or whatever for a minimal amount of capital, and you are on your way, and when you sell, you are the biggest benefactor. That elephant terminology kind of was first, being floated around back in 2021. I found that there was an article that was written by a guy named Looney, who is an angel investor. He was a founder of a handful of companies, but he wrote an article back in 2021 entitled "Neither Unicorns Nor Zebra, But Elephants." And that's kind of where this first originating terminology came from. Goes over the capital efficiency and the slow growth and the high profitability and the powerfulness of an elephant in comparison to the mythical unicorn. We have to remember, where did that unicorn terminology even come from? It's because they were so rare.
Yeah.
It was so rare to be a unicorn.
And actually doesn't exist.
And doesn't exist. They're literally mythical, right? And so
but elephants are real.
And that's the same approach as a founder should be taking. Is like, how hard is it to get to $1 billion valuation and warrant that $1 billion valuation in the right way? What's the kind of revenues you have to build up your revenue line to? What's the kind of an employee base and everything that comes along with that $1 billion valuation, let alone multiple $1 billion valuation? And then the exit that comes along with that as well. It's such a hard, it's a mythical creature to capture.
We didn't have the terminology elephant, but go back to 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016.
That was
we were teaching, preaching, and living and doing elephant.
Yeah.
But we didn't have the word.
We didn't have the unicorn to elephant comparison.
Yeah.
But then, and there's tons of awesome quotes in that article that was written by Looney back in 2021. Like he says, he was very critical of unicorns and the distortion that comes along with it. And he's like saying not against innovation, but it's just, he's like, honestly, I'm pro sanity. Like I want to be real, and to go around Silicon Valley or all these VCs having conversations with a bunch of startup owners saying, like, you're going to be a unicorn and you're going to have this kind of exit. Like, that is very rare. Whereas elephants, like he's literally saying, Looney's saying in his article, elephants are realistic. Like, you can build a $5 million revenue business, a $10 million revenue business where you don't have to get 100, 200, 250. Yeah.
And it's very rare, even though we have seen it from some exceptional founders that we've mentored and known. It's very rare, though, to hit $1 billion valuation and have the founders even above single digit ownership.
Yeah, very hard, because you got to think the amount of capital that you're taking in, and then the terms around that capital, it's going to dilute.
So it turns out, let's say you get some huge hundreds of millions of dollar valuation exit, but you only own 8% versus owning 75% as founders, and you get $100 million exit. You could. And also, what was your lifestyle like for 5 to 8 years while you were doing that?
Yeah.
That's the interesting point, right?
Yeah. So then fast forward to today, where over the last 6 months to a year, a lot of this elephant terminology has come back up. And that's coming from an article that was written back in 2023 by Erica Wenger. I hope I'm saying her last name right. And so shout out to Erica and her article from 2023 that was entitled Elephants, Not Unicorns. So she kind of built on what Looney wrote in 2021 and kind of brought it into mainstream VC. Mm-hmm. And over the last 6 months, she's been doing a ton of posts on LinkedIn.
We don't know her, but great job.
Yeah, because we appreciate her posts, because that methodology and that strategy is exactly what we subscribe to in building true, real business, elephants, not unicorns. And Erica takes a different approach to it than what Looney did in 2021. It's very comparable, and she had the right thing, but hers was more like values aligned and durable, and often community-led entrepreneurs and businesses.
The lifestyle comes into play.
And companies, yeah.
Right? I mean, like the founder's life of pursuing an elephant and still becoming a multimillionaire rich entrepreneur at exit, the founder's life on that path is so much more enjoyable.
But what Erica emphasizes is intentional scaling, not just scaling to scale.
Yeah.
Like intentional, true, real scaling, and then early profitability, not pushing profitability down the road until, we're going to raise more money to cover that up. She talks about in her article, Elephants, Not Unicorns, intentional scaling and early profitability, which is exactly what I think encapsulates an elephant.
Let me summarize by explaining the full arc, the full gestalt of the experience of a journey an entrepreneur can take as an elephant, and contrast that to the well-known unicorn path. Okay, so you're a scalable startup. Let's take a software company, a B2B SaaS software company. And you've got a good idea, you've devised a good solution, and you've done some lean startup work, and you've gone down validating a business model. What are you going to do? Well, what we like to see happen and what we invest in is we like to see the company in today's dollars raise somewhere in the, 400,000 to 800,000 range. That's kind of a good range. And you build a tremendous amount of value following lean practices and lean methodologies. And you get that first money in like that, first real money in, and you get the company going. But Are you going to then just raise massive capital really quickly after that?
That is kind of a VC model because, right, the VC wants you to spend money. If you're a good business and they like you and they feel like you have legs and potential, they're going to encourage you to spend so that you have to raise, and they can dilute.
So let's call that first step there, the pre-seed or early stage seed round of investment, to give you some capital, some working capital so you can do some business. That's good. But then from there, you should take that money and just create value by having a product that people rave about and love, and they're not churning, and you're spending very little money, and your co-founders and first key hires are figuring how to sell and onboard and activate and retain customers. That's how you create tremendous value, and you keep most of the equity for the founders and those key employees. And so you do that. Don't go stop at every step along the way and take in massive amounts of money before you figured a lot of those things out. Here's what it is. If you are a B2B SaaS company and you get to 6 or 10 million ARR, that's 6 to 10 million of recurring revenue in annual revenue, you're going to start getting approached unsolicited by buyout offers. The magic number of 10 million, if you can achieve that, imagine getting to 10 million on just a $600,000 pre-seed investment. And people go, that's impossible. You can't do that. No, it is.
Yeah,
we've seen it. Matter of fact, my best investment of all time, we've talked about it on here, and we had Evan Tishima, the CEO, 200,000 raised, got to that number, had a massive exit. And what are the multiples you get at that? At 10 million for B2B SaaS, you're getting like 8 to 10x on your multiple.
Yeah.
It's an incredible outcome. And if you still own, as founders and key employees, 75 to 90% of the company, guess what? You're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. And
that's an elephant.
Yeah, that's an elephant. Again, we're not here to talk bad or talk negatively on the unicorns that have come in the past or coming down the pipe or in the future, or the investors that are doing that, right? That's not the point. We're just trying to paint both sides of the picture for you, of saying there are two options here, and one is very realistic and one is great to pursue, but the percentages who actually achieve it and get there.
And one thing I wanted to bring out too that we didn't bring out is,
as an entrepreneur, don't get in this ego trap of thinking if I'm not a unicorn, I'm a failure. That's not what this means at all. Public praise is great, but private happiness is like greater. Yeah. I promise you. And so don't be the founder that feels like you have to go and chase this $1 billion status or this unicorn path just to be successful, because that is not true. I promise you, a ton of other people who have been on, they are sipping pina coladas on a beach in Hawaii saying how great their life is being an elephant. And it happens all the time, all over the United States every day. So don't let this again, that ego trap take over, and get to elephant building. That's my message. So,
all right, great. I think that wraps it up.